So I know, talking more back on the technology side of the house, I know that you've been very forward thinking, and maybe that came from your history in think tanks or, your creativity side, but kind of looking at what you've all implemented from a CX technology stack, like what do you think, or what have you seen has benefited the customers the most?
That's a really good question. I would say on the technology front, I would probably label two main things. The first I would label, very broadly speaking, as chatbot technology. And we've been involved in the chatbot space for about 2 years now, starting from very, very basic low-level chatbots. So nothing that's hugely fancy, where it's very impressive AI technology or anything, but simply a bot. It doesn't put a barrier between the customer and the customer service agent, because we always made sure it's very easy. If you wanted to transition off to an agent, you could. But that does a basic scouring through our FAQ page to see if there's a ready-made answer to a customer's question that can be surfaced before the customer decides they need to go to an agent. And even when we were utilizing a very, very low-level version of that technology, we were getting about 15% chat deflection from that, and no issues with satisfaction whatsoever. And I know I've seen many, many different studies that show, I think there was one Harvard Business Review study that was talking about how about 80% of consumers, if they're given the option of self-help, they actually prefer that option, and they'll try it out first if it's easy enough to try out. And we literally saw the exact same thing with even our low-level chatbots, that only about 20% of customers chose immediately to go to an agent when they knew this was a chatbot, but they asked their question through the chatbot just to see what they would get out of it. But that was something where there was immediate benefit to the customer that we could see and we can quantify. And as we've advanced our chatbot and added more technology and more complex conversational trees, and we've seen deflection go up to 20% and then 25% and upwards towards 30%, et cetera. Now we're on the verge of allowing customers to be able to actually take action on orders and subscriptions within the actual chat window. We expect that to go up and up and up. And I point to that again because it's very quantifiable, where you can see this is the benefit customers are getting and the benefit we're getting.
Do you see almost a quantifiable number based on that upwards of 30% for chat?
We don't really see it necessarily taken away from other channels, but we mainly see it just in regards to the siloed effect on web chat itself.
Sure.
And just the ease it's given us when it comes to staffing and being able to ensure superior response times for customers, which we know in chat, and chat's our main contact channel. So it's not a majority, but it is a plurality of our contacts go through chat. So there's a lot of emphasis we put on chat, and it's a big feature of our iPhone and our Android app, as an example. So we put a lot of emphasis on chat, and the main benefits were deflection through chat. And yes, we saw some instances of a slight decline in phone and email volume and even text volume, but the main benefits was from chat, and then allowing us to provide a quicker service even to other customers because our agents didn't have as many customers to deal with. So that's really the main benefit there.
Okay.
I would say the second example of technology is more indirect. So one of the ways we've used AI technology is when it comes to purely informational purposes. So we use an AI-based tagging system that automatically tags incoming contacts according to a predefined categorization system. So we have certain primary and secondary categories about different types of customer service issues customers have, and those are automatically tagged for us. And I mentioned that as being successful because it has about 80% accuracy, so it's never going to be perfect, as no algorithm is, and it's not something that directly a customer feels. But in terms of the impact, indirectly, there's a huge area of impact for customers there. Because just being able to have a ready source of information about why customers are contacting you and being able to identify where there are spikes in contacts and for what reason creates tangible results and tangible information that can be spread throughout the rest of the organization to affect change. And I know that's one of the challenges that a lot of customer support leaders have, is that a lot of the times the feedback that you're getting from agents is not really tangible enough to be able to go to someone with a product mindset or an engineering mindset or the C-suite and have them listen to you. So the more that you can get actual information and you say, here are all these contacts we're getting for this issue, and then you can cross-reference that with satisfaction, and you can cross-reference that with retention and lifetime customer value and average order value and all that stuff. It just opens up a whole world of information that you can then use to advocate for the customer and improve the customer experience, even though the customer doesn't necessarily appreciate that technology is helping to improve their experience.
So that's all done through AI. So that's automatic tagging that's already been done as the conversation is happening?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
It's basically instantaneous.
Okay.
So once a customer starts chatting or when their email comes in, the tagging system checks into gear. And as the conversation is updated, if it's relevant, tags will be added. So it's dynamic throughout the process of a conversation.
Okay. And then as a roll-up of all those conversations, is there someone, like a person who's looking through all of that? Or is it the system knows kind of, hey, we've had 100 conversations about this. There might be a problem with the product or whatnot to feedback to R&D?
That's right. So what we do now basically is we have pre-built reports. So yes, we have pre-built reports that automatically take all the information from this tagging system and surface it up in digestible, palatable ways, both internally, because we use the information internally in customer support to understand things like how does the average handle time of certain types of issues vary. So again, we can also have an understanding of this issue is costing us this amount of money because it's taking up this amount of agent time. So there's a lot of internal uses we have within the customer support space, but it's also serviced to our main reporting system at Freshly, where we store our customers' data, so order data and subscription data, et cetera, where it can be cross-referenced in pre-built dashboards and so forth by other people in the organization, especially in the product world.
And it sounds like you have had some partners or some stuff that you guys have built yourselves. But then also, I think you had mentioned to me before that you took someone who used to be a QA specialist, but was big into gaming, and now they're doing some of the development work too.
That's right. Yeah, we've aside from the AI space, we've also been involved in the robotic process automation space. We've had some big wins there, starting with working with one particular vendor. But a year and a half ago, we started working with them, and that was one of our first big forays into technology after early low-level chatbots, where they built a bot for us that agents could trigger when it came time to cancel a customer's order. Because as a subscription service we renew weekly, every day of every week we're having customers charge for their shipment of meals next week. There's inevitably situations where customers forget to skip their order because they're going to be away and all sorts of stuff. So we get this onslaught of contacts that come in from people who forgot to skip or were confused as to whether we were a subscription or not and that sort of thing. So we tried to damp down on that. And the way we did it is by partnering with this company to create a bot. And this bot can be triggered by agents. So it's not AI where the actual bot isn't making any decisions, but it's agent triggered. But then once the agent triggers it, it goes through the whole process of accommodating the customer, canceling their order, maybe canceling their subscription, sending off an email response. So basically everything's done. So it takes these tickets that would take an agent 6 minutes and reduces it to about 1 minute. So since then, we've really doubled down on the RPA space. As you mentioned, we identified this one gentleman who was one of our quality assurance specialists, but he was very involved in the gaming space. So we put him through some paid courses online to learn his way through coding, and he was able to reach the point after only a few months where he was able to build some low-level bots for us. And now we have our engineering team has built our own homegrown version of this bot that we were using a vendor for. But we've been able to use bots to do a lot of administrative efficiencies. So previously reporting systems that we had to manually download and manually distribute and email out to people are now all handled through a bot, which greatly simplifies the process of updating agent dashboards and all sorts of things. And yeah, it's all through cultivating not only more of a relationship with people in engineering, but taking this person who had potential and moving him into a role where he now actually works in engineering on these special projects for us.
That's great. I mean, especially, as we talk about entering into the customer experience space, there's so many problems and opportunities for us to fix and solve and make better, especially as you say, like technology is always moving. So I think it's great that as people enter it, there's just such a plethora of areas you can dive into, or you can change your career within customer experience and go after something completely different than what you've done before. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's definitely true that it really comes down, again, to people and to using people the best way that you possibly can. And I think that's really the key theme of all this technological innovation anyway, where technology is really about finding areas where people aren't needed individually because a system or a situation is just that simple to deal with or just requires a very, very basic answer. that using a human being to answer that question or deal with that situation isn't a good use of that person and isn't a good use of their unique skill sets when it comes to problem solving and empathy. And that's also the sort of work that makes customer service work very unbearable for a lot of people over time, because if you're just answering a series of routine questions and you're just going through the motions very administratively, then that's not very challenging work. And you also don't get the same thrill out of it because you're not going to get the great effusive customer comments for answering a basic question. But being able to help someone who's really in a tough spot or resolve a situation for them, that's really what helps you to feel meaningful and that your work is meaningful. And also provides the opportunity to use people in more interesting ways. One thing that we try to do is think of customer support very expansively, I guess you can say. So we've always taken our agents and our senior agents especially and partnered with other teams in the company, so marketing or product or what have you, and used our senior customer support agents to trial different types of customer outreach programs. So rather than going through the process of actually building something, using customer support people on a manual basis to try it out more cost effectively, just to see how it goes. So we've used our senior agents to do things like send mass text messages to customers after they receive their first order, just to check in with them and get a temperature check for how the customer is feeling and what additional questions they may have, and then kind of mine that information. So do like textual analysis on those responses to see, what were customers' concerns and what percentage of customers just said, thank you, everything's great, versus what percentage of customers had follow-up questions versus what percentage of customers had problems to report, and then track the retention of those customers over time. So how much of that initial response on their part is predictive of how long they actually stay with us. And that's all done just manually through having customer support people available. So we try to make very expansive use of people, both to make some of these experiments more cost efficient for the company, but at the same time to make customer support work more interesting and make customer support people feel that they're actually involved in more than their tiny little corner of the world where they're answering things reactively, but rather give them the opportunity to contribute more concretely to the business in other ways.
Yeah. Super quick tactical question. For your agents, how they're set up through all of those channels, do you have a recommendation on pairing channels together? Are they super agents? They handle any type of channel, or is it that you have very skilled agents working on specific channels? Most
of the time we bifurcated it because we're active on a lot of different channels. So we're active on email, phone, and chat. And those are our three main channels, with chat being dominant and phone and email being about equal. And then we also have text messaging, so SMS, which is only about 5% of total volume. And then we have more nuanced channels like Apple Business Chat. And then we're also active on social media. So that includes Facebook wall posts and Facebook ad comments and also Facebook Messenger. Okay. So the way we have it chopped up is on our main contact channels, most agents are dealing with two channels. So it's either phone and email or chat and email. So we pair a more passive channel with a more active channel. And that's mainly helped us to keep ready eyes always on incoming emails and helped us to get tight email response times. There are certain people who we concentrate solely in a certain channel if the volume calls for that. So we do have certain people who just focus on chat. And the expectation for those people is that you can handle more chat simultaneously than someone who is doing chat and email simultaneously. And similarly, we have certain people who just focus on emails with the expectation that you're going to be answering a higher volume of emails, a higher density of emails than someone who is a phone and email person or a chat and email person. And that generally has worked well for us, that structure, to maintain a degree of flexibility in terms of getting great email response times, but also making sure that we're not overburdening people so they can't balance chat and phone together as two live channels. For some of the smaller channels, like the messaging channels, like text messaging and Apple Business Chat, we tend to segregate those more among specific agents because the volume's lower and we can do that. And then we have some other fillers who help in, but that's more targeted just because the volume isn't quite there as compared to email, phone, and chat. On social media front, we have a separate team that handles everything that's social media related, and that includes Facebook Messenger.